untappd.com. Check out the chat because we got a lot of questions already for our very special guest, co-founder of the application we all use on our app. I don't know if you've heard this little ditty. It's Untappd. Greg Avola. How's it going, Greg?
Hey, Brian. How are you? Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on. Well, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking, this is the India Pale Ale from Charter Oak. I believe this is a brewery that's actually in Holyoke, but it's considered, this Charter Oak is actually a Connecticut brewery, from what I understand. My father-in-law picked it up for me for Christmas. That's a sign of a good father-in-law, by the way. He gives you beer, so that's awesome. So that's what I'm drinking tonight.
Quick follow-up. Are you from New England?
I am. I'm from the Boston area originally. I live in New York City now, but I'm a diehard Red Sox fan, living in the enemy state pretty much.
I heard Holyoke and I heard Connecticut, so Ben and I's ears just both perked up for a second.
Very familiar with that old Charter Oak growing up in Connecticut.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, again, chat, I know you're watching. We got a couple in there. Ask questions away, but we're just going to kind of get the ball rolling. We appreciate you coming on because I don't think a show goes by where either of us, as Carla would say, have a pissing contest over who's doing what with Untappd badges. But we always talk about it. The obvious question is, how did Untappd come to be? More importantly, how did you become involved with Untappd?
Yeah, Untappd's it's a really funny story. So about 5 years ago, my co-founder Tim Mather and I, Tim is out of Los Angeles, and I'm out of New York. We basically kind of were talking about ideas that we wanted to build, and we always thought about Foursquare. Foursquare was the kind of the premise of where Untappd kind of came from, where we were like, you're checking into a place, I'm checking into a place, that's cool, but we want to know more information about what you're doing there. And we thought about industries that were very, very social, but not really social on the web. And yes, there were forum sites and rating sites, but nothing in the terms of like a real-time, communication and stuff like that. So, Untappd was kind of born because of that. We thought about beer. Beer is very social action, but there really wasn't a social online site for it. So, we started out with Untappd and kind of built it off of there, and that's kind of how it started. And I remember telling Tim when we first started, I'm like, I don't think anyone's going to use this. Maybe our closest friends. Maybe our family, but that's about it. And obviously, I'm very wrong because I'm talking to you folks on a podcast right now. And I've never met any of you guys face to face, so something obviously is working. So we're very fortunate.
Definitely, and the kind of the background of yourself. Did I read? And I don't want to overexpose it again if you didn't want it. But were you not necessarily a beer man to start? Yeah, no.
Tim and I really weren't into beer when we first started, and it's a crazy story. Everyone's like, "Well, you weren't into beer, and you built this amazing beer app." And we're like, "Well, I think the whole premise of why we're building this is to kind of educate people about what they like."
Interesting.
And the 6 years ago old Greg would say he hates beer, and he's crazy drinking an IPA right now. And the real truth behind that is I just never found a beer that I liked. And if you talk to many people out there, like, I don't like beer, I think the answer is they haven't found the right beer they're looking for right now. So with the application, we really got into it. We figured out what we liked, what we didn't like, and we said, hey, if it works for us, it can work for a lot of other people as well. So it's kind of how it all started from that perspective.
So it started with 2 people, and how many are working now for the company?
Just 2. It has stayed the same over the last 5 years. Tim and I actually work part-time. We're not full-time on this. We have full-time jobs in addition. So it's definitely a labor of love. We work really hard and trying to make the best of what we have, and we try to be as responsive as we can given our time limitations. But I think we try to do the best we can to help our users get what they need.
For sure, yeah, and so we're breaking this out because there's many different ways we can talk about this without getting out of order. So we're going to break it down into some stats, get into the technology a little bit later, and more importantly, the badges and how people can get more badges and get more badges. But I think Carla's going to kick it off a little bit with some stat talk because she's our numbers gal here. So
yeah,
lay it on me.
I'm the resident, beer numbers geek. So, just hearing that you guys are running this all with just the 2 of you is still impressive as heck for me. So how many users-ish do you have that are using this now? You said, oh yeah, it's just going to be the few of us, but what are you up to?
Yeah, we're about 1.8, 1.9 million users on the application now, which is absolutely crazy considering the fact again that I just mentioned. I thought maybe 10 people would use it. So we're well beyond that, and we're growing every day. It's amazing because because we only are two individual people that obviously are spending most of our time doing development and trying to get the word out. Our users are our biggest helpers with that. I mean, they tell everyone, they talk to their friends, they share on Twitter, and that's kind of where the word gets out on Untappd and whatnot. So that's where we're at now. We're very fortunate, very happy, and we're continuing to grow, which is a good thing.
Speaking of kind of continuing to grow, how are you seeing kind of like a steady growth of people? About how, do you add on a certain number a month, or is it go up and down, or?
It's very it increases almost every single month and at a really rapid rate. The crazy thing is that we've actually looked at analytics on what are the busiest months in terms of Untappd, and year over year for the last 5 years, the busiest month on Untappd in terms of people checking in and people joining the service is always March. And the only thing I can think about with that is St. Patrick's Day, which isn't a huge craft beer holiday, but at the same time, it's still a big drinking holiday in the U.S. So year over year, that's been the biggest month for us. So I mean, I guess that's something to say for March.
How does it compare with New Year's Eve?
New Year's Eve is different because we're looking at a smaller time period. So we're looking at, people really get drinking around the 7 or 8 or 9 o'clock hour, and then they die off usually right after midnight, at least on the East Coast. There's not much, because of the fact that, the East Coast and Central Time and Mountain Time kind of fall really close to each other, than we have Pacific. It's still concentrated to a smaller time period. St. Patrick's Day, no matter if it's a weekday or a weekend, it's usually all day drinking, 24/7, all the time. So I think that's pretty much what it comes down to. But still, it's only one day out of a full month. But yet, every single year, that's been the most highest checked-in month. So I'm curious to see what this year, 2015, will bring. Maybe it'll be the same. Maybe it'll be different. We'll have to see.
That's crazy.
Well,
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say March also has the Ides of March, so maybe that's gonna be like helping add on to it. So
yeah, it's crazy.
That's my favorite holiday.
In New England, for me, it's more like, has it stopped snowing yet? I just need more beer to get through the end of the snow.
I hear you.
So you've got this good growth of new users. Is there anything that you guys do to kind of go and find more users, or is that kind of thing organic? Like, what are you guys doing to get that big of a following at this point?
With only 2 people on our team, and most of our time is spent developing and making things are working, we really don't have time to go out there and kind of market our app. So what we've always done is we've always believed in the grassroots movement in terms of getting these users onto the service. So we try to basically make the experience for a user and interact with them on a very nice basis throughout the process, so they tell their friends about it.
Right.
One of the common things we did when we first started, I'm not sure if we're the first ones to do this, 'cause I know a lot of social sites do this now, is that we actually include the Twitter handle of the brewery in the tweet when you tweet the message out. And that's how we first got a lot of attention from the breweries, is that they were seeing this weird URL that came with their tweets of people saying they were drinking it back in the early day, and that's kind of got us a lot of attention in front of the breweries. Plus, that's how their friends also heard about the app as well through Facebook and Twitter. Is also a great way to kind of market that. So, we're really focused right now on making sure the user experience is the best it can be and making us available for people to talk to and ask questions. And we feel like if we get those 2 things right, they're going to tell their friends about the app as well. So we're really focused on customer service as our primary focus on getting users.
Totally. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say that I don't remember like the day that I installed Untappd, but I do remember seeing the URLs come up in my Twitter feed and go, what is that? I don't know what that is. And it's such a dynamic platform for beer. Twitter is that there's a lot of people on there that are interested. So that was a wicked smart move from the get-go.
Yeah, it was a crazy idea, but it worked. And now a lot of companies do this. Foursquare does this. Path does it. I'm not sure if we were the first one, but I remember specifically sitting down with Tim and saying, here's a crazy idea, let's do this. I remember talking to Sam Adams about 3 months after, and they said they searched for their brand on Twitter, and all of them were Untappd check-ins. So
Nice.
it makes it really helpful for us for getting in front of breweries and also in front of users as well. And again, we kind of modeled a little bit of our check-ins after Foursquare and also the comments for a check-in after Twitter. We didn't want to create an environment where someone is spending 2 hours writing a novel on their phone about a beer review. We wanted to be short and sweet. That's why we have the 140-character limit on the commenting for the check-in. So we kind of mixed those 2 together.
Yeah, and going back to staying on the users topic. I mean, you might have a grassroots when it comes to acquiring new users, but your support. I mean, you have your own separate forums and support that if it's just two people working part time on those, you guys got a lot of work on your hands. But I mean, you guys do a great job with responding to people, because that's one of the main things that a lot of forums don't do, is you can put a question out there and then it's gone, and then you don't know if you're going to get an answer or not. But you guys seem to be right on point with that, and I'm sure that response helps people say, hey, check out this app. These guys, if you have any questions, these guys are very
Yeah, I mean, being a developer myself, I always hated it when I contacted Facebook or Twitter for a simple question and never got any response at all. And I understand they're a huge company, and I'm just a small individual guy, but I always wanted to have that kind of engagement with users. So I try to respond as quickly as I can, probably almost too quickly. We've gotten some responses saying, like, do you ever sleep? And the answer probably is no. But at the same time, we really feel like we owe the user a lot. There are stakeholders in the sense. We want to make this the best it can be. And a lot of other services and platforms may not think that way, but we try to focus that as our primary objective with the forum stuff. And it's really just me, and Tim helps sometimes with the forum, but I'm primarily responsible for the forum stuff, so I try to make it as engaging as possible.
That's great.
Now, you mentioned that earlier on that you would include the Twitter handles of the breweries in the tweets. Mm-hmm. At what point did you remove that, and is there any option as a user to turn that on so I don't have to remember the Twitter handles of the breweries? Because a lot of times I spend time while I'm like the slowest Untappd check-in person in the world, where I'm like writing it, then I gotta go search for the brewery's Twitter handle, and then add that back in there.
So what we do for that is we actually automatically do it to this day, but we have some logic in there that makes it a little bit easier for you to include it. So the most important thing in a beer tweet that comes from Untappd is the beer name. No matter what you do, the beer name will always be in there. And if your comment is long, obviously, that takes triumph as well. So usually if you write a long comment and your beer name is long, all we'll have enough space for is really your comment, which will be truncated, and the beer name. If there's enough space, we'll include the venue if you're there, and if they have a Twitter handle, we'll include that. And then finally, if there's enough space for the venue, the beer, your comment, and the brewery, we'll include all those in the tweet itself. So it's all about space. What we found from users is they want their comment and they want the beer to be prominent, and everything else is kind of secondary, only because we used to have it where it would not show the beer name and you just have like a comment with a link, and people are like, what are you talking about? This makes no sense.
Yep.
So it's like pineapples. You're like, what
tastes like pineapples? Are you eating a pineapple? I don't understand. So we always put the beer name first, and the beer name first, and then we put the comment as the secondary one, and then that kind of follows down. On Facebook, it's much easier. There's no limits to that, and it's a lot easier to include everything. But with Twitter, obviously, 140 characters, you have to pick and choose what you want.
So you talked about users, but we haven't talked about international. So how far does your app reach?
Well, the app is global, so it can be used anywhere in the world. Obviously our primary users are in the U.S. because that's kind of where we focused it and where we started it. But we actually have a lot of users in other countries now.
Nice.
Australia, UK, that area, Europe, Germany, Belgium. They're popping up all over the place, which is great and amazing for me because an app is being grown overseas and we really don't have users have been telling people about it. So that's a great way to kind of get the word out. We have a bunch of moderators that are on our service because one of the problems we have obviously is with duplication because of our system allows people to add beers whenever they want. So we have about 40 plus moderators on the service now that volunteer and specialize in that area of focus, and we have a lot overseas and a lot in Europe because we don't really know a lot about the beers that are over there, and they can help with translations as well. So the app has grown a lot internationally over the last couple of years, and we're extremely humble for that.
And so when these users are using it overseas, do you see them adding beers that are from breweries not in the U.S.?
Yeah, we see a lot of them.
Cool.
And, when we first started Untappd, we only had open source database of around 5,000 beers, and they were really generic beers, the stuff you see every day. And the biggest thing with that is that we wanted users to create this Wikipedia-like system where they could add beers whenever they wanted and help us grow. And our goal is to be one of the largest open source beer databases in the world. So we allowed them to add beers, and as they grew, we have close to 500,000 beers in the database now that are commercialized. So it's pretty crazy how that has grown from 5,000 to almost 500,000. But again, people from other countries have added their beers. There's been beers that have total foreign characters that we would never even know about here in the U.S. and they've added overseas. So we're very fortunate to have very passionate users to help us kind of keep the system growing like that.
Cool.
Kind of keeping along with that same idea, one of the things that I like about the app is that you guys took into consideration homebrewing and allowing homebrewers to add their beers and have the ability to check into those. Was that something that you guys maybe had trouble deciding whether to include or not, or right from the get-go, did you want to include that sort of section of the beer market?
We actually had no idea when we first built it. We weren't really thinking too much about what people would add. We would always thought they would just add the commercial beers. We never even thought that they would add their home brews. So it's kind of like the whole Twitter @mention system, which became from the users. It's the same thing for the homebrew stuff. We didn't even plan for it. We didn't even have a field in the database for homebrew. It wasn't even there. And people started adding their own and adding their own. All of a sudden, we're like, well, we need to add a feature for this and flag this because, we don't want to recommend homebrews because that doesn't make any sense. So, we started adding that feature on there, and people got to be able to claim their own breweries and claim their own breweries, add logos and whatnot. So it was definitely something that was, needed, and we just didn't know what people were going to do with it. And once they did, we were okay with it for sure. The biggest problem we have now, people will create. We have one generic brewery called Homebrew, and I think it's first started there. I don't know how it started, but someone created it, and then there's about 10,000 beers associated with this brewery. So it's pretty crazy.
People are really excited about that.
Can't wait to see more from that great brewery, Homebrew.
They make a lot of specialized beers. So the crazy part about it is that we hopefully will. Have this recommend them to create their own brewery and create their own beers so that it actually comes up as official and stuff like that. So it's a little bit cleaner.
Speaking of which, so you guys are going through and you said you have moderators to kind of weed things out. Do you guys just I'm just such a data geek. I would sit here with like 7 monitors and just be like looking at that people check in. Do you guys like see trends in the data? Do you see something pop up as being like wildly popular, or do you not kind of get into that kind of detail?
My background really is in data analytics, so I live and breathe, as probably you do as well, for this data stuff. We built our own custom, not to get too technical, but we built our own custom error logging, and we called it WART, because I thought that would be very fitting for this. So it logs all these analytics from the server-side infrastructure, but also trends in terms of individual beers and when they happen. I think from our data, we've seen like exactly what day fall beers would actually start being checked into, and the pumpkin sense goes up and down really around the crazy time period. You can pinpoint it to one exact day. Especially for the the Sierra Nevada Beer Camp series that came out. When that first came out, within a couple days, they had taken over the top beers on the site within 2 days. All 10 of them were all the Sierra Nevada packs. So it was very crazy. You can see all that stuff in real time. Probably about a couple years ago, I used to troll, the good troll, not the bad troll, the pub feed, and kind of get to know people who are checking into, visually see them, and then when I saw them tweeting out and stuff like that, I'd be able to match their username to what I've seen, and they'd be all like, wow, that's really stalkerish. I just like to be a little bit closer to the users and hear what they want from the app and hear what they want to say for it. So, I had some guy, tweet me once and said, "Oh, I'm so surprised you replied. I thought you were owned by like a major beer company or something." I'm like, "No, man, we're just one 2-man team working part-time and trying to make this the best it can be." So sometimes people get really shocked by that. They're like, "Wow, that's crazy," and then they apologize for not getting a response in 12 hours, and they're not all pissed and stuff. So it's definitely a labor of love and something we monitor on a daily basis for sure.
So I want one really quick follow-up, and then I'm supposed to turn my section over. Is there one beer that has been checked into more than any other beer? Like, do you have like the one that's been checked into the most?
You know, the crazy thing about Untappd, when we first started the service, we never identified ourselves as a craft beer app. We're not really about that. We don't want to segment ourselves as only a craft beer app. And while I say that, our goal is to educate users about what beer they like and what beer they don't like, and recommending users. So the top checked-in beer on Untappd are all the macro beers that you see everywhere in the world. And the reason why is because they're available everywhere in the world. So the Coors Lights, the Miller Lights, the Bud Lights, those are the top checked-in beers in the app. And I think that's because they're available everywhere. And those are also beers everyone tries at least once or twice in their lifetime. So, you know, our goal is to take that data, analyze it, and see what we do for recommendations based on people's taste profiles. So,
very cool.
Yeah.
Figure that'd be a good
that's like
one day.
Yeah.
that's why like you have the light lager badge that maybe some of us may not have ever gotten yet.
Well, the crazy thing is that the first 25 badges you see on the badge screen, because they're always ordered pretty much in the way that we enter them into the system, were all badges from the very first creation of Untappd. So that's like the frat party, the lightweight badge, the all-American badge. They were very, we weren't sure what people were actually going to do on this service. And the funny trivia part is they used to be all one beer requirement. You check in once and you get the badge. And we quickly had to change that instantly once people started using this stuff, because they were testing it out in the morning just to seeing what it would do, and all of a sudden they'd earn the top of the morning. And they'd be tweeting that out. They didn't want people to know that they were drinking in the morning on a Monday. And so we had to change a little bit of how that worked when we first started. But again, we've been an app for everyone, not just craft beer drinkers. That's why there's some badges in there that if maybe you're not really into craft beer, but you're still trying to discover what you like, there are still badges for you to achieve. So if you don't really want to go into the Russian Imperial Stouts just yet, you can still stay on what you're comfortable with and kind of track it from that perspective.
Nice.
One of the most shocking badges has to be when someone gets the you've drank too many beers or you've checked into too many beers badge.
The take it easy badge.
They used to like give you like a say it again.
We used to have a long time ago. We used to have a limit. You could only check in a certain number of beers within a certain time period. And you know, our thinking behind that was, what if we get in trouble, or what if someone just goes crazy on the service? You know, mainly it was just for people to not overload us, and you know, preventing spam. And then we realized that this really wasn't going to happen, so we removed that. But the Take It Easy badge was supposed to be for festivals. That was the whole point of it, where you're having 2-ounce pours, and that's your badge for that. But you know, we're in a day and age now where you go to a couple breweries, you have flights, and you're there anyways. So you know, that's kind of the way it came about.
Oh, great question.
It's actually so fun to receive that. Sorry, Brian.
No, sorry. Great question. Before we move on to like the techie stuff, because you brought up a great point. Is the beer fest, and I might have just lost a question in my head. Oh no, I got it. So we've never asked you to describe a check-in. In your mind, is a full pint a taster? Because I have friends that are very strict.
This is the #1 question I get asked.
I have very strict friends who are like, no, it's a sample, not worthy of a check-in. So I don't know.
So my perspective, my answer I always give is that there's no Untappd police. There's nobody out there that's hiding behind the bar that's going to jump out at you and yell at you for checking in something incorrectly. My personal view is when I'm at a beer festival, I don't check in every single beer that I've had. I check in the ones I want to remember, because I may have had this beer before, and I want to remember it or rate it or what have you. So I will check in those things there. I will also check in if I've had a taste of a beer or a small pour that I want to remember. That's the key thing for me. So I always tell people, whatever you feel is appropriate for a check-in, you should go ahead and do it. There's no one's going to jump out there and grab you or something like that. Nice. It's your account, and I'm not going to police you.
I mean, because Sean only checks in growlers. That's why he has 400 badges. So.
Growler's the smallest port size, yeah. And not growlette, so it's 64 ounce. So.
Yeah. All right, Sean. So now we talked a little bit about the tech, but now I think Sean wants to get into a little bit of the deeper side of the nerds. So nerds, ears up. This is the good stuff.
Yeah. So just get into as a little bit behind the technology. I mean, Brian and I think are both techies. I came from the computer world before beer.
We all have computers.
Yeah.
Sorry, I came from the computer software selling side of the world. You have an IT role, Brian. So that's what I was getting there. But I know early on different times, especially a couple of New Years, there was some times where like I'd be at parties with like 30 people, and everyone would be like, "Damn it, I can't check into my beer. I can't search for the beer. It's just timing out. It's just saying try again later." And it was like everyone just like gets deflated, and it was really tough. What does it take from the technology side to keep this app that you've created on your spare time up 24/7?
The crazy thing is that, I think I told you this earlier, Sean, when we talked this past week, is that this is the first year, I'm going to knock on wood right now because I don't like to say these things, this is the first year that Untappd was completely functional throughout the entire New Year's Eve. This is the 5th year we've done New Year's. We've failed miserably the last 4 times. This is the first year we've actually completely gone through without even having an issue. So we're very fortunate like that. We've had to basically re-architect almost every part of the app since we first started. And when I went to computer science school, I'm a developer by trade. When you're in school, they teach you how to build apps for like 10 people. They never teach you how to build apps for millions of people. So you have to learn this stuff really trial by fire. And Tim's background is more on the design side and the graphics side. So I'm pretty much sitting here in Untappd headquarters trying to figure out why the hell is this not working, and Googling everything and everything. So I've learned a lot from this process. My wife is probably hates my guts sometimes when we have to go home because Untappd's not working, or I have to bring my laptop to a bar or something.
Oh, man.
I've done that numerous times, but we've gotten a lot better with these things. And it takes a lot of technology, a lot of database, a lot of servers. But now that we've gotten a little more proactive with our approach, we've built custom applications to develop on our phones so I can see how Untappd's doing on the road, so I don't have to be back on my computer if things go wrong. We have that wart error monitoring that I mentioned earlier. So we've done a lot of things to help it kind of get a better footprint in monitoring it for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that's pretty much how we do it.
Awesome.
That's cool. How do you deal on the data side of it? I know you mentioned a little bit earlier of either duplicate data, or do you ever throw out data that's maybe incomplete, maybe it's not like a duplicate brewery beer entry, but maybe someone was having a problem with their own service, so they clicked it 5 times and they got 5 entries of that same thing within like seconds?
Yeah, we've done a lot of cleaning up of that process. I mean, it still happens from time to time, but we do have our moderators have monitoring tools on newly created beers, so they can see newly created beers being added to the service. They can approve, they can reject them, they can manage them. We monitor that as well. We also monitor duplicate check-ins really quickly after each other, and we log those so that we can delete them later. We also let the user know if they've duplicated a check-in and won't let you go through. So we've done a lot of improvements with that process so that it actually is a much streamlined procedure. But again, with an open adding system, that's where a lot of the complex stuff happens. To be honest, we get a lot of people adding things that we don't even support. This past week, we've tried to really tighten up some of the stuff that we've done in terms of adding the beers to the system when it comes to what they are. So people have added things like water, NyQuil. I've seen crazy stuff all over the place. And we've had to really kind of tighten down our process so that stuff doesn't happen. Coffee is the #1 thing people add. So, again, we want to be seen as a really good beer app. We have a detailed policy on what we allow, what we don't allow. So we try to use all this knowledge and this data we have to make it a better. I mean, we have a lot of jobs that run on a daily basis to help clean up incorrect entries with missing ABVs, stuff like that. So we're able to quickly kind of attach them and triage them as needed.
Sorry, go ahead,
So Ben, go ahead.
I was just curious, for you, as a user of your own application, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Do you have any favorite features? Anything that when you use is something that kind of gives you joy personally?
I think that the best feature I have right now, and I don't think people know this feature actually exists. There's 2 things. One is when you go to a beer page on Untappd, there's a stats box across the board that says how many total check-ins, how many monthly check-ins, and then the last one that says you, which says how many times you've had this beer. You can tap that and the check-in feed below will change to all of your check-ins to that beer. So if you want to remember where you had it or when you had it, this is an awesome feature that most people don't know about.
I don't think I knew that.
Cool. We have to change the way it's presented. The UI is a little bit, not perfect, but that's a great feature. And the second thing is there's a newly added feature called the Friends tab. It's below in the area below where the check-in feed is, and there's an activity of friends and the details. The Friends was added about 2 months back. If you tap that Friends tab, it will sort all the check-ins by your friends and give an aggregate rating of your friends to this beer. So the number one question we get asked all the time is, I know that this beer is a 4.5 out of 5 globally, but what do my friends think about this beer? It's very hard to do that. So this Friends tab is one of my favorite features. I quickly see, oh, the friends that I like, they're all rated here. Here are all the comments and the check-ins they've done from it. This helps me decide if I want to get this beer or not. So those are the two great features that I love about the app. You know, there are a lot that I don't like, but we're going to make them better, and that's the whole point about it. So we're users and we're also developers. So
Nice.
We're also the client.
Oh, God.
very true.
Yeah. Sean, you had a
Yeah. So with the I mean that your app is sort of in maturity. A lot of people know about it. There are other people out there that think they can make a better app. Do you see? Is there any apps out there that you feel that you're competing with? And if so, do you have any comparison to your app to any other apps that are available?
Well, you know, what we look at is just like the brewery industry, we are building a product that people can use, and you know, breweries don't compete against each other. They're very friendly. We're the same way with us, and we don't really look at the apps out there as competitors. A lot of them will do similar things, but we want to focus on building what we have control over. We don't necessarily have too much control over what they do, so we're not, you know, obviously crowded in a corner and be like, what are they going to do? Are we going to beat them? We're going to beat them. We don't really do that type of activity. So we try to focus on what we can do the best and always improve. A lot of apps maybe sometimes sit on their hands and say, oh, we have an amazing app, we're just going to keep it the same. We're always building. There's not a day that has gone by that I haven't touched at least one piece of code on Untappd. So, you know, it may take us longer to get features out there to users, but I think because of the fact we're only a two-man operation, but we're always trying to get the feedback and make the app better. So, you know, in terms of competitors, yeah, I'm sure there are a few out there, but we're focused really on making our product the best it can be, and as opposed to like kind of looking and seeing what they do.
Awesome.
Do you feel that there's possibly a feature out there that you would love but just wouldn't make sense for the current way that Untappd is built?
Well, one of the features everyone's been asking for is barcode reading of the individual bottles, and people would scan those and be able to check in quickly. You know, we've been working on something like that for a little while. Nothing, you know, ready to release yet or to announce, but the key thing here is that you know, I have this gut feeling that most people are drinking out of a draft, and we don't have that feature to identify right now if it's draft or bottle or can. But I almost feel like once we roll this feature out, I really want to see how people actually scan their bottles. I know we're all drinking out of bottles right now, but at the same time, I want to know if people are drinking at a bar versus drinking at their home. I don't know if it's going to be a very useful feature, but it's definitely going to help the situation for sure. People check in faster and get more information about the beer.
That's interesting.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I do that mostly from bars, thinking of my own self. The only feature that might help me, not the scanning one though, is if it suggested possible spellings of the beer that I was trying to put in. That's my problem.
If you've been a member of Untappd for a very long time, you know that the search has got exponentially better.
So much better. No, it isn't.
Oh,
yeah.
And we're not talking about favorite features, but my absolute favorite feature when added was filling out the search.
Yes.
Like I don't know what it's called, active search or something.
Autocomplete search.
Autocomplete. It was like for some reason I look up and I just like the sun was shining down on me.
Yeah.
I'm like no longer am I spelling like is it this
Lots
brewery?
of stereotypes. Yeah. No.
Yeah. So good. Well
so
played.
the whole thing, the technology behind that is one of the most complicated things we've ever had to do. You think about it logically, we are making a request every time you're going to type a letter. And that's millions of requests to the server back and forth. So latency and performance has been a huge thing for us, and we're really happy that it's working at the high performance. The problem with the matching or suggested terms is that we're not a Google. We don't have the huge search infrastructure for that. But a lot of these beer names are not English words. They're not things that I can actually swap out for here and there. We do have a system called aliases, where we commonly add aliases to these beers, so when you search them, they'll actually come up. We need a better way of actually describing that it's an alias to you as opposed to just coming it up. So you may not know exactly this is the name for the beer, but I definitely echo what you're saying about suggested terms. We've tweaked a few things. We've tried to get it to work, but nothing has stuck just yet because of the fact that these are not English words, and sometimes they're not going to match. But we're definitely getting there for sure.
Excellent. Anything else, Sean, in this little tech?
No,
chat?
I believe Ben has a question, right?
No, I was actually just going to ask a question about what kind of features you would want to incorporate that maybe like other apps are kind of talking about, but that was my exact question was about sort of the scan idea, because the same way that you were talking about that you imagine that a lot of users are on draft, like being in a bar. The whole idea of this being worldwide, I'm thinking of myself, at home with kids and things like that, like not being able to get, like 90% of my check-ins are at home. So that whole the barcode scan or even like a label read kind of idea is something that's of interest to me there. But you've definitely answered the question that I was thinking of.
Yeah, I mean, UPC is something we're definitely going to be adding in the future. OCR, which is taking the label and actually translate it. We've tried that a few times. It just hasn't really worked. Labels are getting more intense. With wine, it's very easy. The label, the name is actually printed in pretty much, standard text across the board. With beer, the label is all over the place. There's a beer like Optical Illusion here in Long Island, and it's like a rainbow of colors all over the place. It's almost impossible to rip the text off. But I think UPC
and it's true too. There are apps that exist that you hold your phone up to the beer label and it reads it. But my success rate with that is maybe like 1 in 10. Exactly. Sounded like a great idea. Downloaded the app, trashed it a week later.
I think the key thing we want to try to do is obviously make check-in a lot easier. Check-in's got to be faster, smoother, simpler, and I think UPC is the first step to that. Maybe when OCR kind of makes it a little bit more straightforward and to the point and works a lot, we want to incorporate that into the application. But I think UPC is our next step, making that check-in process a lot easier.
It's true. Yeah. So I think we'll swing into the more of the user, the UI, things like that. My first question was we've already talked about most of the badges, but do you know what the most popular badge is that either people have gotten or people are going for?
Yeah, I think the most popular badge, obviously besides the newbie badge that everybody gets out when they first check in, is around the IPA badge is one of the most popular ones that we've seen throughout the system. The Porter one is also heavyweights is a good one it's been there a lot. Again, these are the badges we had when we first launched, so they've always been there on the system. I think people joining the service, obviously checking in a lot. IPAs are very popular. You can check the top trending beers on the site, and those are kind of translated loosely to what badges are probably going to be popular. So that's probably the most popular badge, in my opinion, is the IPA badge.
Nice. And you mentioned the newbie badge, and in our chat they were giving us their links to their first badge. Yeah. We have Craig in the chat. His newbie badge was on August 11th or August 2011.
Wow.
He's the Stone 10-10-10.
It's a good one.
Yeah. Don was January 2013, and he was drinking a Marooned on Hog Island by 21st Amendment.
Very nice.
And Zach was drinking a Sam Adams Tasman Red in December of 2012. So a lot of old users on there. Not old people.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty crazy. I mean, looking back, my first check-in was September 17th, 2010. I think it was early. It probably wasn't even a real check-in. I don't know why I didn't delete it. But, I think the crazy thing is that these badges have turned into this thing where, we didn't really understand what the concept was. We know that people want to earn them, but they've become a very important part of Untappd and something that we try to make more and always kind of innovate when it comes to badges and whatnot. So it's a great part of the app, and it gets people excited about beer and excited about trying different things.
And I guess going off of that and badges, and you did mention it's part-time, but at some point I'd imagine you and Tim would like to make money off of the product, which is kind of where the more specific either beer week, festival, brewery badges come in.
Yep.
How does that program work? As much as you can describe, how does that kind of tie in if someone wants to have a badge for their particular event? Or
Sure, yeah. So I mean, we do badges for a lot of things. One thing we don't do badges for is like events or one-day festivals. The problem is that it doesn't actually return a lot of the investment by the individual event owners, and a lot of times they'll come to us like the day of, and be like, hey, here's a badge for our event, but then you have to actually go to the event and you have to buy a ticket, and if they're sold out, then it's the whole purpose really of the badge itself. So we have other ways of working with them, with our promotions that allow people to kind of sponsor offers for users to actually go out there and earn tickets and discount tickets to festivals. But for the badge side, we do custom badges really for the regional and the national breweries, whether it's on a monthly basis or on a weekly basis. But it just gives them a great idea to kind of engage with the user and get them excited about trying their beer. The whole thing around badges is that they are actually advertised on the app, but they're so well integrated into the product that nobody sees them like that, and that's why they're so useful. We really believe in this type of advertising. In the news world, people would say things like native advertising. We don't even think it's native advertising. We think it's really more integrated advertising, where you don't actually see it as an ad, and that's very important for us to keep continuing to offer this service for users. Is that we want to be able to pay for our servers and whatnot, which are very expensive. So we do these sponsored badges, but again, users love them and love to earn them, and that's kind of how they come about.
There's a huge difference between a New York Times article on Dyson vacuums than seeing a Smutty Nose brewery badge on Untappd. Is that because you guys are actually supporting the scene?
Exactly, and the key thing for us really is when it comes down to it is it's not really about it is an advertisement, but people like to earn it. No one shares. When's the last time you saw someone take a screenshot of an ad on Facebook and share it on Twitter or Facebook? No one does that. So our goal is to get away from the Google ads and get away from the the dancing baby and the mortgage or whatever you see on the site these days.
I missed that, babe. No,
and really have integrated ads with the system so that it doesn't seem like an advertisement. It seems like something that you want to get, and that's really where our focus is for the advertising side.
And so if someone would want to create a badge for their upcoming, if they have a brewery that they want to do a badge that like other breweries do, what is there a process? Is it through the website?
Yeah, it's through a help site. There's a custom badge section that we have that has some outlines of what we kind of have requirements for and what we do, what we don't do. A lot of breweries will come to us and say, I want to have a badge for drinking every single beer that we make, and we're like, whoa, slow down there a little bit. I don't think we can do a badge for every single beer that you make. It may not be saying the right message to the individual user. So, we definitely have a system that we go through and we work with them, figure out what's the best way to help use Untappd to help market their product.
Okay, cool.
So I've got a question actually from my Twitter feed, and it was asking, there are now more than like 100 companies in the USA that do like beer bus tours and based in the towns like Maine and New Hampshire has one and whatever. Is that the type of thing that you could work with them on to make a badge of some sort or promotion?
Yeah, it's a little difficult with the badge for these tours. We have done stuff for them in the past, and the best promotion we've done is actually giving discounts for tours using our promotions model. People would check in the area and they can get a promotion on their screen that says, "Here's $5 off your next brewery bus tour." I think those are fantastic. I'm living in New York City. There are no brewery bus tours here in the city because there's not a lot of breweries in Manhattan. There's not a lot of space. So I think. I'd love to see that more often through the service, and we're definitely hopefully looking forward to working with them in the future. But I think the badges are such a highly sought-out item that we have to define some sort of a criteria so that some badges will be allowed and some badges will not. Otherwise, we feel that if we do that too much, they get diluted and no one wants to earn them anymore. So it's a really big role that we have to play to use that knowledge, help us kind of figure out what gets in there and what doesn't. But we have promotions for the ones that don't make it and then ones for the badges that do.
This is gonna be a weird follow-up, and I apologize for asking it, but it just came to mind. Ever thought of having a reset where if a user reaches all the badges and then they would like to reset, they get a little emblem for resetting that they have reset, and now they have to start fresh.
I have never heard that request before in my life, but that's great. It's a good idea. No one, to my knowledge right now, has earned every single badge because we have some hidden badges that are only available during certain time periods.
Nice.
there was a beta drinker badge that if you were part of the beta program back in 2010, you could have earned from that.
Nice.
I got married 2 years ago, and I had a wedding badge for mine. That was pretty awesome. But I actually didn't even geo-lock it, and people got it from checking in.
Boo. No.
Whatever. They were enjoying the wedding too, I guess, or so. But yeah, so I don't think the user has all the badges yet, but I think that'd be interesting to see if they'd actually go ahead and reset it, start over.
And I said it, and I knew someone in my chat would figure it out. It's actually a thing that Call of Duty has.
Oh, really? Achievements.
It's such a game, yeah. Like once you reach all the levels that you can choose to reset, but you get a little badge that say, "Oh my God, that guy did everything," but he's doing it again. But yeah, no. Thanks, Zach, for calling me out on that one. All right, Ben, hit it. What do you got?
Oh, I was just curious. Well, obviously we're all huge supporters of you, and I obviously want to help you continue to develop this. But maybe we can take a minute to talk about the supporter accounts.
Yep.
Talk a little bit about what users can benefit from by becoming an Untappd supporter with the monthly subscription program. What the benefits of that might be.
Yeah, we launched this almost, I think, 2 years ago now. We got a lot of requests from users that said they'd like to give money or pay for their time in the app. They really enjoyed it. They used it a lot, and they wanted to give back. And obviously we were very humbled to hear that, and we didn't want to slap a big PayPal button, donate on our site. That'd probably be kind of really ugly from a UI perspective. So we said, what can we do for the users to give them kind of a not like a pro account, but some extra features for them paying a monthly subscription? And we came up with this idea of the Untappd supporter program, where people can pay a monthly basis or 6 months or a year, and they get some extra features in the app. One of the more common one that everyone loves is they get an exclusive Untappd supporter banner that appears, a yellow banner below their name on the feed for all their friends to see, and also their own little badge that says Untappd supporter as well. Everybody loves badges, so it's really cool to have your own kind of badge that you've earned for your supporter program. You also can see your stats in a more kind of aggregate perspective of your top beers, how many new beers you've had in the time period. You can change it by weekly, you can do monthly, you can do yearly, and it shows you how many beers you've had over a graph period. Maybe you don't want to see that, but I like to see that. You can basically look at how many years you had, how many over the entire year span. Our new feature we rolled out probably about a year ago is you can see them all in a graph perspective, so and also on a map. So if you checked in with a location, all of your check-ins will be plotted on a map for you to see where you've been in the United States or the world, and that's a really cool feature that people have been asking for, as well as seeing your top beers and your top styles and whatnot. And then finally, if you're really big into kind of using Excel or you want to customize things, you can export all of your check-ins to an Excel file or a CSV or a JSON file, and you can do your own type of manipulations and stuff like that, so that it actually works out in your favor. So there's some benefits of helping us support the server costs and keeping this thing running. So we're really humbled to have people actually be part of the supporter program, and it's growing every day. So we're really happy to see that.
So that way you can print out the graph and then say, listen, honey, I was not out at midnight. You can see that my last check-in was 10. I was in bed. It said hashtag sleeping. Yeah.
You can really do a lot with it. You really can go crazy with it.
Sean,
okay, all of that sounds cool, but really, what's that going to cost a supporter?
Oh, yeah.
I think the way we look at it is we have it's pretty much the cost of a beer per month. So we do $5 a month, or you can do $25 for 6 months, or $50 for the year. And as you go up the scale, you get a discount per month for basically doing it for a longer period of time. So a lot of people are like, oh, I want to buy you a beer. You've been doing a great job with Untappd. Well, you can buy us a beer by doing it on Untappd for a month. So that's kind of what we look at from that perspective.
Nice. So I think, Sean, you satisfied? Are you signing up right now? Oh, boy. So everyone in the chat sign up.
Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. It means a lot.
Sean, you buying us all supporter? Oh, thanks, Sean.
Oh, look, I can gift it to everyone. Well, I'd like to try it out myself first.
Yeah,
it sounded very attractive.
Yeah, you can actually give someone a supporter account. We opened this for like a holiday season, and it's funny. I actually blind CC me and all the emails that people actually get sent out, and when they send you an email, it will have a little custom message, and people are like, have a supporter account, enjoy the holidays. And I love to see those kind of things kind of pop up. It's very cool, very awesome to see.
Jeez. Well, and so we were talking about breweries using badges. I was walking into the Portsmouth Brewery in beautiful Portsmouth, New Hampshire, this past weekend, and now on one of their banners, it has the Twitter link, the Facebook link, but they now have the Untappd icon as you walk in the door. It was only recently, maybe a year or so ago, where you've rolled out the support for breweries. How does that interaction work between yourself and the brewery?
Yeah, so I think we rolled that out actually about 2.5 years ago.
Oh, geez, sorry.
And we've been tweaking it pretty much a lot recently. The biggest change recently is that we've opened commenting to breweries, irrespective of whether you've opted in for that via the like button. We took a lot of feedback from users. We did a lot of research on it. And a lot of breweries came to us and said, I want to comment on this users because they're checking into this beer and it's incorrect. Or this beer is really, really old, and they gave it a 1-star because this beer is like from the 1970s, and I don't know how they got it. Yeah. So like we wanted to find a way for users to interact easier without this barrier of the like button. I think the like button scares a lot of people because they think of Facebook like, what's going to happen at this like button? So we wanted to abstract that layer out of there and allow the communication freely. And a lot of our users have come back and said, this is great. I've been able to communicate, and the breweries are loving it too because they can communicate. You can get feedback in real time and have that kind of conversation immediately. And it's been very, very positive, and they're really enjoying that experience because if you think about it, Untappd provides them a view into what's happening with their beer right now. It's not someone saying, I have this beer a week ago and I'm writing a full-page review on it. It's someone actually having the beer right now, and you can communicate and interact with them on a real-time basis. Nice. And to breweries, that's kind of very important from their perspective.
And do you see a lot of breweries actually using it to talk back to their consumer?
Yeah, we see a lot of them are actually doing that on a regular basis, and it's fantastic. And we applaud them for doing that. And we look at ourselves not as a Yelp review system where you have this kind of back and forth. We're all in this together, and we're all in this as to make the best product, and they're going to make the best beer. So you have to understand people aren't going to like your beer sometimes, and this is a great avenue to kind of communicate and talk with them and see what you can do to improve your product. So people are using it on a high level.
Nice.
I have maybe like a two-part question. I'm curious to know if there are any long-term sort of future goals where you would like to see the app going, and then maybe if there's any sort of immediate features that are being added that you might be able to give us sort of an exclusive on.
Sure. Yeah, long term is, we've been really working on this hard for the last, I would say, year now, is recommendations. They have been okay. They're not the greatest, I will admit that. We've been improving them drastically, and about 6 or 8 months ago we released something, and we've been beta testing it and launching it and taking it back and launching it to allow more local recommendations. The biggest problem we had, people would check into an IPA, and they get recommended a Planet of the Elder. And then they email us and say, what the hell is wrong with you? I don't want to be recommended a beer I cannot get. I live in Wyoming, and this is ridiculous. So we were really focusing on local recommendations and then chewing that data to get it spit back. So we want to improve that really in the short term, make it even better. It's okay now, and it's getting better every single day. But it's a big data dump of trying to get all that stuff together and make sure beer is sold in your area. And we want to write that recommendation better. Long term, for long term, we're working on. I can't really share too much details on that, but I will say that we are, in the process of, doing a really major facelift to Untappd to really improve the experience and also to improve some of the major requests that users have been asking for over the last 6 to 8 months. And I can't wait to share with everybody when that time comes. That's a really horrible teaser, and I do apologize then.
We love it. No, we need it. We need that teaser.
So I really hope
it's like we're doing stuff
it.
We can't tell you what we're doing.
But I mean, it's really cool. We've been working on it for a little while, mocking it up, and we're really excited to share it with the world when that time comes. But for now, we're really focused on the short term with the recommendations, getting that really, really tight.
Nice.
And you got some beta testers right here.
You heard it here first.
You heard it first, yeah. You heard it here that there's something happening.
You heard that something's coming.
Well, I mean, if we want to rewind a little bit too, I keep saying recently, but I don't know how long ago it was, rolled out some changes to how the badges work with the different levels and kind of increasing up the levels. And even that, to some people was a small change, but to me that was really cool that you kind of went through and thought about your users and, kind of implemented the thing. So even though we don't know what the next thing is, I have faith.
The crazy thing with that is that we originally had levels to 10. And, everyone asked every single day that I remember they always been like, why don't you go to the higher levels? Well, technically speaking, you can't have a limited badges like levels. It doesn't exist. It's not something that can be done. So I was very against the idea of going to even 50 or 100 because I didn't want this to become the World of Warcraft of beer. And all of a sudden we'd be getting, oh, you're level 72, and people seem to not care about that. So we did a poll, we tested users' opinions, and we found out that 50 would be a great spot to try out. And we did that. We rolled it out. We made all the badges that were already existing retroactive to that point. And people would go from level 1 to 50. And then I got emails in my box saying, we want level 100 now. So it's like, give mouse a cookie, they kind of want some more. So I think we'll be happy with 50 for now. I think it's a great way to see what that works and then see what the next steps are for that.
Nice.
Sure, and once everybody gets 50 badges, they can just hit that reset button.
Yeah, custom reset.
Yes, exactly. Or just make a new username. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
Do you have people coming after you for your data?
Well, I think the data is the thing that we really feel is the most important part of what Untappd is. I mean, we've been able to run a lot of analytics on our own side and basically being able to do a lot of things. We think that this data is going to be very relevant to not just breweries but bars. We're really trying to work hard with them and get the bars on the service for the future and help them better integrate their products with us and our products with them. But the data is a telling tale. It's a live, interactive, growing database. So people trying beers and what they thought, and in different areas of the country, in the world, and giving the recommendations and reviews on it. So we think, not right now, no one's really kind of gone down that path. But I think we'll definitely see where that comes. I think we can make use of that data to help you guys as the users and myself included have a better experience with the application. I mean, we can really tweak this so that it becomes your toolkit of being able to find better beer and also to figure out what you like, what you don't like.
Well, also to that end, you mentioned bars, and I think the first time that Carla, myself, and Sean's head literally exploded off of our body was when we were in Portland, Oregon at Bailey's Tap Room.
Oh yeah, Bailey, yeah.
And we saw this board and we're like, okay, there's tweets here, that's cool, but what are these other parts? And we check into our beer and our picture showed up on the screen and we're like, this is like the biggest beer geek thing of all time. Is that something you lend out your API to let bars use, or is that something that anyone's free to kind of handle, or is that specifically for bars that want to use it for that purpose?
We actually have open API. You can go to
Nice.
untappd.com/API. We've had since day one. I'm a big believer in open source and big believer in data, so I urge people that want to check that out to go there. But they've used our API digital port, created a board where you can put all your name up there. I actually went to Bailey's Tap Room, and I saw that just like you. I had no idea that it was there, and I checked in and I flipped out. I really flipped out.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And I go to the bartender. I said, "Who made this? This is awesome." And he turns around and he goes, "That guy back there." And I turn around and he's this guy on a computer, and he was programming it right there. That was early in his company phase, and those things are awesome because we love people to use Untappd to build on real life experiences. So you go into a bar and you see your name on a board. That's fantastic. That's really what we want to see. So we have the API there that you can build custom things. Like someone built a calorie counter. That's not really that cool, but I think other stuff is really cool with that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
World peace versus Untappd check-in showing up on a monitor in a restaurant.
Exactly. It's really cool because people actually can build products on top of us, so they can build things like apps that do certain things. There's beer trading websites out there that have been using Untappd check-ins and stuff like that. So it really helped us help developers get a good beer database. We really focus on having accurate data and having really good access to that data. So it's really important for us. So it's a great way to start using it and see what it brings.
Nice.
So I have maybe a personal question. I guess coming into this, having assumed that this was an application that was created by a total beer nerd, but you admittedly weren't coming into this. How have you seen yourself grow into the beer community, and where you started off maybe not liking beer? What has grown for you, and maybe like what's your favorite style now since in the 4 or so years that you've been doing this?
Yeah, I mean, the crazy thing was, like I said, I started really didn't know much about beer. I didn't really like it. I think for me, my favorite style now is IPAs, and I absolutely love them. I seriously would never imagine I would ever like this beer. I guarantee the 6 years old Greg would 6 years ago, not 6 year old Greg. Very big difference there. Would be drinking this beer and spit it out because it's so bitter, it's gross. Who would drink this? I think you kind of learn your palate gets kind of used to things as you try different things, get used to it. One of my first beers I ever had that was outside the traditional one was Rare Voss, and I remember trying that and like, wow, this is a lot of flavor. I've never imagined a beer like this. And then from there, you can kind of basically go down the path of trying different beers and really learning what you like. In terms of the community of beer lovers, one thing I never really realized is how passionate they are for beer. And that's great because a lot of industries and a lot of communities are passionate about some things, but not passionate about other stuff. They are very passionate. I remember when we have the moderators will daily debate about vintages and make sure things are right on the site, and this is not right, this is wrong, this style is not right, this style is wrong. And I'm like, whoa, okay, all right, cool, it's all right, let's all talk together now. So I think very passionate about beer is helpful because it helps people, this community and this app kind of get more users and get more attention, because if you're passionate about a kind of a community like this, it makes it a little bit worthwhile to be part of it. And I'm honored to be a member of the community like everybody else is, and they're very accepting, and it's very cool to work with them.
Nice.
Just because you kind of sort of mentioned something that kind of triggers on my brain, what's the actual etiquette for vintages? Do you check into the beer as a vintage? Do you check into the beer as the core? The
official policy on Untappd, which is very loosely governed, unfortunately, is that if the beer has a year on the label, such as the Celebration from Sierra Nevada or Ruthless Rye has the year on the neck, then it should be listed as a separate entry at Untappd. If it's just a beer that's seasonal, that you have every single year, it is not a vintage on Untappd. Like, for example, Oberon from Bell's Brewery is the same beer every year, but it's not going to be a vintage. That's our official policy with that. Yeah. And if the brewery wants to make this year a vintage, then they can identify that in the system as such. There's a big difference between brewery vintages and user cellaring. There's a really big difference between those two things. Oh, yeah. And right now, it's not very evident on the site, and hopefully in the future, we'll be able to tackle that. But for anyone listening right now, please be my friend and just follow that rule. That's all.
Hey, a couple of big abusers in New England and New Hampshire.
I do it.
The difficulty is going to be, though, is if a lot of the people are actually having draft, you don't know what's on the label.
This is very true. It's very true. That's why you rely on the. You rely on the bars to actually give you the right information, which 100% isn't accurate most of the time, but you do, we hope that users as use the application more often that want to go to the extra mile and want to figure out what they're drinking will investigate this and say, I'm drinking 2012. Or, a lot of the tap takeovers from Dogfish Head for 120, they'll say what they are on the menu, which is great, but sometimes you just don't know. Yeah. And that's why you check into the one that's not yeared, because you don't know what it is. And that's
you don't know. If you don't know, you check into the general. If you see it on the label, you know it's specifically the vintage. You specify that vintage. Yeah. That makes sense. That's logical. Yeah. We sort of have that debate within my circle all the time about which one.
It's a pretty big circle. No, I'm kidding. Send us home, Sean. Send us home.
Yeah, so typically I'm not sure if you've listened to other shows that we've, interviews of different brewers that we've had on, we sort of end the show in a certain style of, if someone was today inspired by listening to the show or inspired by using the Untappd app to create an app to help promote the beer community, what would you recommend for someone out there that wants to start an app tomorrow to develop it and sort of get into the app game?
Yeah, I think people. It's a common question, and when I first started building this app, the first thing that I looked around and I saw other companies doing similar things, I thought I had to quit my job. I thought I had to work on this full time. I thought I had to put my life savings into it. Technology is very inexpensive. At a large scale, it becomes expensive. But just starting out, you don't have to put away your life savings or quit your job to do this. Our recommendation would be to just try to find out, if you're a developer, kind of prototype your ideas and try to build an app. If you're not a developer, you can try to see anybody on like meetups.com or something like that where you can actually go out there and kind of pitch your idea to a friend or someone who's technical to kind of form a company. And you can do it without leaving your job. It's a very key point that we've learned through this process. It does take a lot of work and a lot of time management and motivation on your side, but I think at the very end you're going to get a lot out of it. One of my favorite moments in Untappd history for me is I went to this bar, Rattle and Hum, in New York City. It's about 4 years ago, and I was with my wife and my girlfriend at the time, and we walked down to the end of the bar, and we saw 3 guys at the end of the bar, and they all had the Untappd app on their phone open and the yellow glowing, and they were checking in.
Nice.
And that was the first time I saw somebody outside that I didn't know using it in the real world. And I just tapped them on the back. I go, I don't want to be that guy that says that's my application and pay homage to me or whatever and buy me a beer. I just wanted to thank them for using the application that made my day. I think when we build products and services, and just like brewers, the best joy is having someone drink your product or use it and enjoy that experience.
Awesome.
So you can get that by doing it on your own. And if you have an idea for something, focus on that as opposed to focusing on quitting your job and trying to figure out what you want to do. Just get it out there and see people think about it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. At least you tried it. That's kind of the way I look at it.
Great answer.
That's that deep. I don't mean.
No. It's supposed to be.
No, that's the best advice.
Yeah, and to kind of bring it back to the beer world, I remember seeing a guy with a 2 Beer Guys hat at a beer fest once, and I walk up to him just to see, like, how do you know Sean? Turns out it was Sean's brother. Hey, no, I'm kidding. So you're Ryan Jansen. This is gross. No.
One of my favorite things early on, as you just mentioned, Brian, was that when you're in a place that you might not know, you're traveling, you're on vacation, you're visiting a brewery for the first time, and you check nearby.
Yes.
And then you tell those people that are actually nearby, and then they look at you, and you're like, hey, over here, we're both Untappd, we're both super beer geeks, and I love that feature of just checking out nearby people that are just like-minded and into the same scene.
Nearby beers is great too because I live in not necessarily in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, but right outside, and there's a couple of bars, but you'd have to drive to them. So I like to know, what beers are on tap. Is not necessarily snobbish, but just in case I get there, I'm like, oh well. But I look it up, and sure enough, there's some bars here that have some great beer, and I'm like, this was just checked in a couple minutes ago. So like that kind of thing, that being able to get that data that even the restaurant themselves can't promote, it's a great feature.
And I'll tell you, just as a beer geek, if you have friends saying, oh man, where can I get X beer right now? Yeah. I cheat and go to that beer. And
there it is.
But I go, oh, they've got it at Salvage Barbecue right now. You should go over there. Like, I know everything.
It's like, she's a wizard. She's a wizard.
Yeah, Carla.
Sean.
Oh, Carla. You're now exposed. We're gonna have to retire you for 6 months. You're gonna go on sabbatical.
Gadgets, man. So, and just to wrap up though, obviously people who are watching this, most of them have heard of the app, but how can they contact you? What have you got any events or things that we should point people to? Go ahead and give your spiel of how we can get people in touch with you if they want.
Sure. I mean, what would make me happy if you signed up if you're not on Untappd at untappd.com. Promo, yes. All right.
Yes, perfect.
But you can contact me. I'm just Greg at untappd.com. I'm very open and receptive to email. You can follow me on Twitter at Greg Avola, that's Avola. I think it's in my thing down here. So I think the key thing for me is that I want to be as open as possible. I want to be as approachable as possible. I've actually been to 3 weddings in my lifetime from Untappd users. So from friends that I've actually met through the service that have invited me to their weddings. So it's been an amazing experience being part of this app. An amazing community of people, and I want to be as open as possible. So if you use Untappd or if you have a question, open up at the help forums at help@untappd.com or tweet me. I'm pretty responsive with this stuff, so I'm happy to help and answer questions and whatnot.
Awesome. I think Sean has a big shout out, real quick.
Yeah, I just want to mention. I guess I'm an Untappd supporter in a different way, as not yet into the user way, but. I am a supporter of, just going to announce it right now, if that's okay on here.
Yep.
We're going to have a 2015 Untappd badge for Portsmouth Beer Week. It starts on Saturday, February 21st, and there's going to be a little bit of twist to this. I know that Greg and I have been going back and forth in a little email. Beer Week badges is something that's a little bit unique and sort of I like the yin and yang of going back and forth with Greg when trying to come up with a badge idea and knowing that the idea of actually having the badge is so that people can get the badge. So to actually get level 1 badge of Portsmouth Beer Week, you have to do 3 check-ins at 3 different locations that are putting on an event for Portsmouth Beer Week. I think right now there's about 28 different venues. There's probably going to be about 35 to 40 different venues that you can check into to actually receive an Untappd badge. But Greg, if it's okay, I could say that now.
Yeah,
that Portsmouth Beer Week is going to be the first event Beer Week badge that has a second level to it, where that there's a superstar Portsmouth Beer Week supporter where you can actually obtain a second level badge for 10 check-ins at 10 different locations during the week.
Good God, lady.
Boom.
Boom. Wait, Sean just dropped the mic. No.
Yeah.
But that's awesome. I mean, and it's cool to know that there's that sort of back and forth with the friggin' co-owner of the application it's pretty much that dedicated. So I mean that's.
Well, people have always said to me that, oh my God, you're the co-owner of the app. You helped build it. I'm like, I'm a user just like you, man. If you want to have a beer, let's go have a beer. I put my pants on like everybody else does. So.
That was my final question of the show.
So I mean, I really believe in being humble and being appreciative of what we've got, and I'm very lucky to be in the situation. And people kind of somewhat think that I'm a celebrity at some point. I am not a celebrity. I drink beer and I like drinking beer and happen to do a few things with the computers, and that's about it. So I like to be as open as possible. That's why I like to talk to users and figure out what we can do better.
Well, Jesus, Greg, I appreciate you coming on. I mean, but before we let you go and close the show, do you have anything for us or anything you want to give a quick shout out to?
Well, I want to thank you guys for allowing me to come on and talk about it as well. I mean, thank you for being users, all of you. I really do appreciate that. And I appreciate your support, because without you talking about it on this podcast or this hangout, people wouldn't hear about it as quickly as they would. So I do appreciate you guys promoting it and supporting it, because that's really what it's all about. So hats off to you guys. You guys are the real heroes.
And I'll wrap it up with this before we say goodbye. Craig Henry in the chat says it nicely, and it's become a staple part of the beer geek vocabulary. Have you tried this beer before? I don't know. Let me check Untappd. That's a big deal.
It really is, and I've heard too that they had it pre-Untappd days. I saw someone had a shirt. They made a custom shirt with the Untappd logo on the back. They put all their badges in a ring around the logo, and they have a front that goes, if it's not Untappd, you never had it.
Nice.
I love it. It's great. It was a husband and wife that came to an event that we did for our anniversary party about 2 years ago. Very blown away. Those are the kind of moments that as developers and the people that build products, those are the moments you live for, and we hope to have a lot more of those in the future. And thanks to all you guys for your support.
Oh yeah, well, everyone raise a glass if you still have one, or a can in my case, to many more successful years for you, Tim, and the team at Untappd. And cheers, man. Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.
Cheers.
We'll see you guys next week. And wait for it.